Welcome everyone to Full Sail on Air. We are at Full Sail venue on the Full Sail campus in wonderful Winter Park, Florida. I'm glad that everybody's here, and I'm glad for everybody to be online, seeing this streamed live. So we have an amazing night, an amazing artist and entrepreneur and business owner here, Nate Howe. I'm so honored to be here and get to talk to him for a little bit. And then we're going to take some questions from everybody, including those of you that are online. But first, we're going to check out Nate's demo reel. You ready? All right, here we go.
Love is all I got, only love in my life, love is all. So save our soul. Wake your soul with love in the morning. Feed your soul with love till the evening. Expand your soul with love on the weekend. Cause love is all I got. Wake your soul with love in the morning. Feed your soul with love in the evening. Expand your soul with love on the weekend. Cause love is all I got. So wake your soul with love in the morning. Feed your soul with love in the evening. Expand your soul with love on the weekend. Cause love is all I got. Wake your soul with love in the morning. Feed your soul with love in the evening. Expand your soul with love on the weekend. Cause love is all I got. My darling, I can give you what you want if what you want is love. Darling, I can give you what you want is love. So save our soul.
All right. Nate Howe, everyone.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Where do you want me?
Go right there. You can stretch out if you need to. Here we go. There you go. Just lay it back, dude. All right, well, welcome. It's an honor for me to be here talking to this guy. I'm a big fan. Hall of Fame inductee this year. How was that experience for you right off the bat there, coming back to...
Oh, my God. That was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, Full Sail throws like the craziest parties. And actually, it meant a lot to me, too, because when I was a student here, they didn't have Hall of Fame. They had a success seminar. And I remember they did it in this big classroom. And we sat at the front, my buddy and I remember these guys who come up on stage that, had jobs at big studios and things. And I remember feeling like a burning desire inside of myself. Like I couldn't even sit still in my chair because I was so hopeful to get out there and make it into the business. So whenever I come back to Full Sail, what I love is like seeing that you guys' like passion and hope and dreams. And I love just seeing graduates achieve their dreams. So to be a part of that Hall of Fame to me was something that was really special because I truly do love this school, and I'm grateful to be a part of it and to be a part of the legacy of it. So it meant a lot to me, actually.
what's interesting about that for me is that as a teacher here in computer animation, I had a lot of interaction with you. You had been here on advisory board trips. You had just come and visited, and you always gave back to either our students, our staff. You were always open for that, to talk about different things with us and kind of explore. And one of the things I always liked about you, too, was the fact that you were invested in personally what each person was interested in or what they were up to. Like, oh, man, how are you doing? What's going on? You always had a great way about including, it seems like everyone. I would imagine now with a successful company, a design company, that's a valuable asset when dealing with clients.
Yeah.
So tell us about, you kind of made this big move recently, I guess, with the company. You want to talk a little bit about some of the changes that have gone on?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an exciting time for me. When I first graduated out of here, I was an animator, and then I became a designer. I freelanced for like 10 years. All over Los Angeles. I got to work in New York a lot, and Italy and Germany. and so a few different places. And then I launched a company with a business partner about 4 or 5 years ago, and recently I just bought him out. I bought all the assets from him and took over the studio, rebranded it with my name. We're at the same location at Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills. I got the creative team I want in there, and so now I have the freedom and flexibility to create the exact culture in the business that I want. And it's been such a blessing just to be able to go into work every day and just feel really kind of a positive environment and be able to really kind of shape that studio to be exactly what I want it to be.
So recently, I know we were talking beforehand about creativity and having a design studio. I mean, that's your bread and butter, and that's the world you live in, and especially showing the world someone else's product or creating a vision for that product. Do you have some initial thoughts maybe on even the word creativity and what it really means to you personally?
Yeah, one thing that you mentioned earlier is that when I see people, I get curious about them, and I get interested in other people. And I think creativity, a lot of it is getting interested in life and in the world. And as an artist, like finding a unique voice, finding a way to convey things, finding a way to look at things differently, finding your own personal style, finding how to like create something to sell somebody else's product or to connect into somebody else's brand. So when I think about creativity, the first thing that comes to my mind is fun and freedom and the unknown. And so to me, creativity is all about kind of playing in that unknown space. As a creator, your job is to bring something into existence that's not currently there. So when I look at that sort of stuff, it makes me feel that you can't be afraid of that unknown. You have to like embrace it and just kind of like love playing in the mystery and love kind of figuring out what could something look like, and then selling that to people, like articulating about it. That's part of my daily job now, and I get fired up whenever I can walk into a room full of executives that aren't sure if they need to have something look a certain way or may not even care. And when I can get that room fired up, and when I can get them to believe that we have a creative solution that supports their business, that's what gets me excited now.
Very cool. Hey, I was just thinking as you were speaking about that, so you're at the high end, you're in multi-million-dollar contracts, developing brands for Discovery Channel and all kinds of cool stuff. Bring that back down now to a student's creativity, and what does that mean? And especially a student maybe leaving the school here and looking for that first job, and maybe some advice you might have, both to maybe keep that creativity alive if it's tough getting their first job.
Yeah. A few things. When you're here, it feels like your portfolio is like all about kind of what's interesting to you. And another way to think about it is like, what is interesting to the person that's going to give me a job, and what matters to that person, and how do I make that person feel like I'm going to be a member that's going to contribute to their team. One of the things that I find with students in interviews frequently is they come in and we go to look at their work and they're like, oh, but don't play that one's terrible, or here's this model, but it's not very good, and they talk down about their own skills. So you don't have to like compare where you are in your career with somebody who's a really senior artist that's been doing it for a long time. But you can walk into an interview, you can be confident about where you are with your skills. And I think, speaking in a way to a potential employer that shows that you're going to work hard to fit into their culture and show that you have some common sense, show that you care about what matters to them, show that you're not a diva, you don't have an attitude, you don't feel like you're the best artist on the planet, you're confident, but you're there to be a team player and to continue to grow and get better. Because that person is paying you. So do they want to pay you if the first thing out of your mouth is like, oh, I'm not that good at this, but... So you got to make that person feel like there's potential in you and talk yourself up. It's not about over-embellishing or lying because you don't want to get a job that you can't perform, but it's about walking in with confidence and doing your homework about who you're meeting with, doing your homework about what appeals to that company, tailoring your portfolio and the way that you speak to somebody in an interview so that it matters to them, not just to whatever matters to you. Figure out what matters to that person and then speak to that.
I'm listening to you talk, and I was just thinking of also in an interview, sometimes it's almost essential for you to listen and watch the body language of the person that's interviewing you, because that will say even more words than they'll even say, maybe. And you can feed off of that and understand the direction you need to go. I know we were talking earlier about a story of a person coming in and really wanting to show you one piece of artwork, but you were suggesting that you like something else. You want to speak to that a little bit?
Well, yeah, I mean, it ties into a larger theme that we talked about a little bit earlier about becoming more aware. If you're a creative person, you really have to be observant, and you have to look for beauty and inspiration all the time around you. And that same kind of skill set of being a creator and noticing beauty, noticing inspiration, and paying attention to what's happening and absorbing everything, that doesn't just kind of help you to become a more sophisticated artist. That also helps you in negotiations. It helps you in realizing where opportunities are. There's so many people that I meet are just blind to all the opportunities that are actually right around them because they're so focused on only one way that something could be possible. So, as a designer, as a creative person, I feel like your job is to see multiple ways that something could work and to open up and be expansive with your thinking and think larger and dream bigger dreams and see bigger visions. But then in personal life, it's easy to really get well, I can only work at this one studio. I only want to be this one thing. I'm only going to do that. And there could be 100 opportunities walking right by you. So slowing down and taking a breath to look at your situation, look at what's possible, and realize that just because you don't see the exact path of how you're going to get to where you want to be doesn't mean that it can't happen. A lot of this stuff, I think, from my journey going from sitting where you guys are sitting to now having my own company, I remember feeling gosh, how am I going to get there? How am I going to make this happen? And it's a nonlinear journey. Your thing right now is you guys are here to improve your portfolios and to learn the tools and to network with the people around you and to gain experience. But once you get out into the business, the tools will become invisible. And really what you're going to be focusing on is what is the heart of what I'm creating right now? What does it connect into the larger vision? And when you get so confident with the tools that you could focus on the creative essence of a project, that's when the tools don't matter and it's your mind, it's your vision, and that apply to the larger brief. So, I think going back, slowing down and looking at what's around you, as an artist, you probably have a lot of kind of instincts inside of you. A lot of artists have a lot of kind of little murmurs or whispers or just kind of something make that blue. What if this scene did this? Or, what if my film was about that? But you have to quiet yourself down sometimes. This school is great because it's an aggressive program and it's go, 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 get it done fast, just like the industry. But every once in a while, step back and try and quiet the distractions around you and let your subconscious expand a little bit. Let your awareness expand. When you do that, what you'll find is you'll get a better kind of caliber of creativity and design choices. And it doesn't matter if you're in music, film, games, whatever, any of these things. If you step back and become more aware and really kind of get more curious about your own creative path and whatever the heart of that project is, if you really kind of let yourself get lost in that. And we were talking earlier, sometimes you're in the lab or you're working and you just have your music on and you're jamming. And then it's you almost don't even hear the music anymore. And then you kind of stand up and all this time's gone by and you're wow, I just was so in the zone. Don't leave that to chance. A lot of people, they talk about creativity and inspiration it's some fluke that just buzzes around and taps them on the head. It's just you have no control over it. Well, if you're going to be in a business where you sell your creativity for money, then you better find a way to have some control over when you're inspired. Because I can't have an artist tell me I'm not inspired this week. And to me, it's well, are you getting a check this week? You have to be inspired this week. That's your job. So to be able to have self-efficacy, to be able to create a desired outcome through your own efforts. And so how do you do that with creativity? Well, it's not a fluke. It's not some surprising thing where, oh my God, I'm inspired today. Oh, today I'm not. You have to like be more responsible with your creativity and own it and make your creativity work for you. So how do you do that when you get some brief or some project you're not sure about? What you do is you get more curious about it. You dig in deeper and you really immerse yourself in things. And when Sean spoke about me like kind of getting interested in other people, being interested and curious is a great thing to be in life anyway. Because if you're interested and curious in people, when you're in that job interview, they're not going to feel like it's just you talking about yourself. You're going to make them feel interesting. They're going to like you more. They're going to be more interested in what you're doing. So being a curious person makes you a better artist. It makes you better at networking, and it makes you kind of more aware of what's around you. And all those things, everything matters when you're getting that first job. Your portfolio, the way you speak, the way that you kind of interact, the way you answer a tough question, you know, the way you handle being nervous in the interview. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. But if you show you have some heart and some passion and you have some skills to back it up, and we see that you have that potential, that's all it takes to get that first gig. And then at that point, do a good job there, and then you have 3 more gigs. So it's really just kind of about making the most of opportunities that are around you and being aware that there's probably more opportunities around you than you even know. One last thing is on that is when I was here, I was studying computer animation, but out of nowhere, I kind of heard a guy. I was just kind of listening to somebody speaking as I was walking by, and he was speaking about motion graphics. I didn't know anything about motion graphics. So I went up and I introduced myself to him, and I said, hey, I overheard you say that. What is that? And he showed me this reel. And then from that day on, I said, I don't even want to do visual effects for films anymore. I want to do motion graphics because there's so much more freedom and style that I could put into it. And it's not like photorealism. And it's not a critique of, VFX guys. I love that world. But it just, that spoke to me when I saw the motion graphics. And I kept kind of like going up to that guy and asking him questions, and I got curious about what he was doing. And that guy is Chris Kelly. He's like presented me into the Hall of Fame, just got hired by Google as a motion graphics senior artist and designer there, and just crushes it. He was one of the most sought-after animators in Los Angeles. He worked for 10 years straight without a lapse in a freelance booking, and he helped me get that first gig. And it was because I was aware there actually is opportunities around you all the time, and just like opening up and seeing them.
That's awesome. A couple things that you mentioned just now that kind of resonated with me was letting the tool go away, right? Getting in the flow of being creative. And I think within that, it also speaks to what you spoke of earlier, of being in tune with that world. So once you're in the flow and you're creating, there's probably another level to that, to now be aware of little glimpses of sparks that could be happening that could direct your creativity in a different direction. So that's a really interesting space. And I know we have students probably online and right here on campus that have been in a lab and been in the zone and then had to be on a break for some reason, and you kind of lost that moment. And you try to go back to that moment, right? And recreate it when you come back from a break. And it's tough. So tell us about how that kind of world happens on a day-to-day basis when you're working on a campaign. How do you allow the freedom to happen with your staff and get things done and kind of be in those zones, but also you have a deadline, right, that you have to hit?
It's about we work with really talented artists. I'm really grateful for the artists I get to collaborate with. And the truth of the matter is the reason they're able to go into the zone and explore quick enough that we can get something done on a deadline and deliver a pitch and things like that is because they're hyper-focused and they're very good at what they do. And it's hard to just start out and be able to kind of do that on such an aggressive timeline like we get in the television business a lot. But I think the key is distilling something down to the essence of what matters most. What is the heart of this campaign? What matters to the client? If we're pitching, what is the emotional response that we need that person to feel for them to give us that business and trust that we're the creative company to do it? And so I think a lot of it is just about kind of keeping your eyes on the prize and like staying focused about what really matters. A lot of times I'll walk through a critique or a lab here and I'll see somebody and they'll talk to me about some detail that they've been spending hours figuring out. Now, if you're ever working that much on a detail, you better make sure that the heart and the essence and the big picture is right. Because if you're getting paid and you're a freelancer and it's a pitch, that means that the studio owner, myself, is typically not getting paid. So we're investing our own money for you to try something that'll hopefully win animation work. And if you're down to like nitpicking a detail, then make sure the heart and the essence is right. So whenever you get your first gig, regardless of what you're doing, before you get in too deep on a detail, it doesn't matter if it's film, music, games, whatever, make sure that you're aligned in the big picture first. If the heart and the soul of the look or sound or feel of something isn't right, then no amount of tweaking a detail even matters. And it's not like a simple solution. It's like, no, the heart is wrong in that. That's making people feel X, and we need to make them feel Y. So I think staying true and connected to the essence and the big picture, that's how we're able to work quickly, get in and out of the zone, because we know exactly what we need to play with. And at that point, it's about making your mind get out of that kind of analytical space and get into that flow state where you're just getting kind of like hypnotized by your own process. And you're just kind of, you're flowing with it, and you're choosing to like get into that zone.
It's funny, probably for all of the students and even us, anyone in this world right now is constantly bombarded by distractions. We have chats going, we got Facebook going, we got all of this distractions happening. And as artists, a lot of times that keeps us from ever reaching a flow moment in whatever we're doing. So what would you say to young artists, first off, about kind of their work environment and protecting that space for creativity?
Yeah, it's so critical. You have to give yourself the platform and the space for you to do your own best work. When you're here at school, you have a lot going on. There's a lot of like things that you could spend your time with. There's a lot of friends that want to connect with you. You have lab time. You're running in the hallways. You're seeing people. There's always a new like stimulus. Add on top of that like Facebook, Instagram, any other app. Add on top of that like just music, television, Hulu, and you start thinking like, when do you leave time in your own head for an original thought? And what is, how much of your day are you spending being a consumer of entertainment, sitting there watching it, and how much of your day are you spending being a creator? So you're here and you're learning the tools, and it's great to watch and consume a lot of these things and emulate it, but make sure at some point during the day, maybe just a few times a week, maybe it's every day, whatever, like give yourself space away from other people, space away from like sound, space away from like distraction, and think about what you're doing, not only with your future, but like maybe, or not only with your project you're currently on, but your future and your big picture. When you're really in the middle of something that's as intensive as Full Sail is, you do a lot of work here, and you're on a tight deadline, and there's a lot going on in your lives, like it's easy to just hold on very tight and stay very connected to what's immediately in front of you. But if you could take that moment just of a little bit of a quiet time to step back and see more perspective into everything that you're doing and think about where you want to go, dream bigger dreams. You don't have to have the answer of how to get there, but just like imagine. Spend time being entertained by your own imagination, and spend time just like getting to know your own creativity, because that's going to be what's getting you a job. If you're expecting to get paid for your creativity, then you have to know your own creativity. You have to know how to work with it. You have to know how to speak about it. You have to know how to take critique. You have to realize that you can't attach your personal creativity with your ego or your sense of value, because if you do, whenever somebody says something looks terrible, then you're going to get crushed. And when you sell artwork and creativity for money, you can't get crushed. You have to step up and give the client what they're asking for. So you have to spend some time, not only are you learning these tools and things, but spend some time to learn how to tap into your own flow, into your own creativity, and learn how to kind of like develop a relationship with it. You look at the best artists in music and film and anything, and a lot of them have a process. They're craftspeople. They have a relationship that's almost sacred with their creativity. Now, we don't talk that much that way in visual effects, in motion graphics, and animation, but a lot of great creative people do things like that. Whenever I get a big opportunity, I usually like to get away from everybody. I usually like to turn my phone off. I usually like to not like every 5 minutes check my phone or like put on the TV. I like to let my awareness about what we need to do, kind of just the subconscious, just process and just sit with it. And then when I get one little murmur, one little glimmer of what a potential idea could be, I don't judge it. I don't try and solve it all. I don't go for the kill right away. I let it be what it is. All right, there's one little potential idea of how we could solve this or what we could do to sell this account or make this creativity great, on this project. But I don't go right for the kill because creativity is a nonlinear process. So when you're designing, you don't have to have all the answers. If you're creating a song, if you're creating a film, you don't have to have all the answers immediately. But what you have to do is get started, and you're taking inventory of these little glimmers and these little instincts that are pulling you different directions. And then as you're figuring out your story more, as you're figuring out your product that you're creating more, and the heart of it, as you're getting more connected to the essence of it, as you're getting more curious with it, those design choices start to fall in line, and everything starts to make a little bit more sense. So it's about not feeling like you have to rush it. It's also about being patient with where you are as an artist. When I was here at Full Sail, I got very frustrated because I couldn't make things that I saw on TV. I didn't have the skills yet. I wasn't there. And I got very frustrated, and you start to judge your own work or shoot something down before you even give your own artwork a chance to flourish. And the key is, like, be your best friend. Like, be your own best ally. Be like, if you had like just an agent or somebody that was behind you that had your back to the fullest, be that person for yourself. So when you get that first creative instinct, it may not be perfect, the song, the film, the game, the character, whatever. It may not be perfect, but don't go attack your own work and talk negatively about it. Be patient with it. Any little tiny creative idea can be woven into a masterpiece, and it could turn into an amazing campaign, or it could turn into something that teaches you how to be better. But it's so easy to just stomp on your work. And likewise, your classmates, don't go to shoot down their idea or find what's wrong with everything. Try and support them, and like you can give honest critique, but like try and support them and realize everybody here, you guys are lucky. Everyone here is like has a similar kind of vision and hope for what they want to do. You guys want to work in this great field. You want to learn about this stuff. And you're all around each other. So like utilize that time to help each other and support each other. Because all of a sudden, if the person sitting next to you gets that gig and you didn't get it, it doesn't matter because that person remembers you, and when they need another person, they're going to recommend you. And I see that all over the place with Full Sail graduates. And so like right now, it's just about like just continuing to grow, and your personal brand, you're defining that to the people in your class. And people remember that. You think like, oh, we're just in school, we're kind of messing around. When I get out in the business, I'll get serious. You want that person next to you to see you as a problem solver and somebody who's talented and somebody that, that person becomes a mouthpiece for you. They go get a job and they're going to speak up and help you get a gig there. So just think about that and be aware of the opportunities around you. Maybe not exactly in this moment in time, but the people that are sitting next to you are going to get a great gig somewhere. And they could help you get one too. So there are opportunities right now in front of you.
That's why I like interviewing this guy right here. Did you catch all that? I mean, that's the gold, man. All right, so, as you were talking, I think what sometimes as creative people, I think something that holds us back probably is our own fears. And it's interesting because what you do for a living, obviously, is design things, create content for products and brands, and I'm sure those people have fears when you walk into that room as well. And I would love to hear both at the studio what you do to kind of alleviate maybe the fear and let that creativity flourish, and then potentially on the other side of the table, how do you deal with a client's fear?
Yeah, I've said a few times when I've been back here at Full Sail that fear is the enemy of creativity. And I really believe that. And I think it's important to never let your fear be bigger than your creativity. A lot of people don't take a chance because they're worried that they won't be good enough. And when that happens, you never know. A lot of people back down from an opportunity because they're afraid that their work won't cut it. And then you never know. So whenever you let your fear be bigger than that opportunity or bigger than your creativity, you automatically lose. It's better to take a shot and not get that one and grow and keep growing from it than to never try. The other thing why fear is kind of an enemy of it is because fear makes you tighten up. When you see a new artist at a studio that has a deadline, that has to come up with an idea, and they're running out of time, they get stressed out. And when you get stressed out, everything gets tighter. And when your mind gets tighter, when your brain gets tighter, it's proven that it's harder to just kind of have nonlinear ideas connect. Where like you want to be able to, as a creative person, free associate and find unexpected connections between things. And that's a lot harder to do if you're tense. So being relaxed and having fun while you're creating actually scientifically makes it easier. But aside from that, it also makes it easier if you're having fun and flowing with it. With creativity, you can use your creativity to empower your fears. Have you ever met somebody who just sits back and thinks about every single thing in the world that could go wrong? And it's like, gosh, you're such a creative person. They'd be like, no, I'm not. It's like, yeah, you are. You're listing all these things that could go wrong. People use creativity in really weird ways. And your job, if you're going to sell creativity and have that be part of your career, is to be really conscious of the way you use your creativity. Your creativity goes beyond getting in and making a new song or making a new film or any other deliverable. Your creativity applies to your life too. Like, how am I going to be more creative than the next guy so I can get this job? How am I going to be more creative than this like sea of people going after this opportunity so I stand out and people kind of look at my portfolio a little bit longer and I'm the one who gets the break? How am I going to be creative and dream bigger dreams and set new goals all the time for myself? So things like that. And what I do in my studio is I really try and make it an environment where people are happy and comfortable. I'm also the first person to run out into the room and say a really goofy idea that I know is like bad or just straight funny. But I do that, to kind of joke around with everyone and keep it lighthearted. But I do it more importantly because I want people to feel comfortable. If you start creating an atmosphere, if you start getting trained that you say something that's creative, people don't like it, and then you kind of are embarrassed or you're shy about it, it attaches, whether you know it or not, a fear of expressing your creativity. A lot of people have like super like shut down, held tight creativity that they never say because they're embarrassed somebody won't like it. So at my studio, everybody speaks up. We all say silly ideas. We laugh, and it's a comfortable, safe environment for creative ideas. And when you have that, then all of a sudden, even somebody could say a bad idea, and out of it, there may be one little gem that you pull and you pop out, and it's like that connects it and gets woven into a larger campaign, and all of a sudden, it's a big win for the client. Fear drives your clients and the people that will hire you as well. So in television, a lot of clients are afraid that they'll get fired if a campaign doesn't work, if it backfires, or if people have a negative reaction to it. A lot of people are afraid to try something new, because they don't want to, instead of innovating, they would rather fit in, get by, and just kind of like not rock the boat. So when you're dealing with people that are giving you opportunity that have fears, one of the things you could do is use it as an advantage. If you can identify what you think somebody may be concerned about, and then in a presentation or a pitch, alleviate that fear and speak directly to the heart of a solution of that, and make them feel safe, make them feel right, make them feel like it's their idea of how to solve this and get beyond the fear. That's how you get people to buy creativity and take risks and have maybe a bigger budget, a bigger idea, and something they're going to go after because you've made them feel they feel trust. And so whenever I walk into a big meeting with a bunch of clients or like a big boardroom, usually my A1 top priority is almost always the same thing. It's let me make this room trust me, and let me make this room or this person, whoever it may be, have a gut reaction that I'm the guy who should be handling their account because I get it, and I'm going to take it seriously, and the things they're worried about won't be a problem if I'm on board. And if you can make somebody feel that way, and I don't mean in a scammy way, I don't mean in like a, kind of like trying to just pander to them, but if you could do that in an authentic way, if you could do that in a way where you really care, where you're really trying to solve their problem, and where you're really thinking through what their day must be like, and what matters to that person, When you can do that and people see that you're reliable, you deliver on schedule and on budget, and you minimize their fear and you make them look good, if you could do that even as a freelancer, you don't even have to have a company. If you could do that as a freelancer or as an employee, and you could do that for your boss, you'll always have work. So, just making people feel comfortable and caring about what other people care about. That's so critical.
In a genuine way, too, right?
Genuine.
Not just doing
Yeah.
it because you want the gig or something, right?
Yeah.
That's brilliant, actually. So, do you ever have clients potentially test you in those rooms about your ideas, that you would come back with a whole laid out pitch that you spend a lot of money on as a company, and they almost want to challenge it or challenge you?
Absolutely. I mean, when you're in a pitch room, sometimes there's different personalities that you're trying to kind of sell to, and some of the people want to try and kind of muscle up against you and try and blow a hole in your whole theory or your whole campaign just to see how you're going to react to it. And sometimes that is even driven by fear because maybe they feel like their boss is going to do the same thing to them. So one of the things that you have to be cautious of, and this happens too, just in a review. We can even take this down to like a more kind of like level right here in school. A creative review, somebody could tell you something and blow a hole in your entire piece of artwork in your portfolio or whatever you're showing them. And you could immediately tell that person why they're wrong. And what's that going to do? They already disagree with you. So if you immediately fire back, oh, you're wrong, this, that, it doesn't help anything. So if you're trying to get somebody to, buy something from you, if you're trying to sell creativity to somebody, you can't make that person wrong. You can help them see a different perspective. But the second that guy who's the decision maker, that guy or girl who's a decision maker in a room, the second you make that person wrong in front of their people that work for them, they don't want to side with you anymore. So if somebody tries to blow a hole in something that you have, it's good to kind of like give a thoughtful kind of nod to what they're saying. If they say, that's never going to work because of this, then it's like, wow, yeah, I could see where you're going with that. Even if you know exactly the way you want to fire back that, yes, it will because of X, Y, Z, one thing that I do if somebody does that in an initial sales meeting is I kind of really show them that I'm considering what they're talking about. I am considering what they're talking about. And then I come back and I weave an answer back into the conversation that makes it okay for them to re-agree with me. I don't do it in a way where one of us has to win and one has to lose, one has to be right and one has to be wrong. A lot of people's ego and personality want to be right. If you let go of needing to be right, if you can let that person be right, but then still come back and agree with you, and if you can massage the conversation, and learning how to speak about creativity that way is an important tool as you go up the ladder. Because if you can get people to feel the way you want them to feel about your designs and creativity, then you can sell it a certain way. And if somebody tries to blow a hole in it, you can point out another way they could think about it and come back to your side. So it's a dance. Just like creativity is a dance, selling creativity or dealing with a harsh critique or dealing with a client who's aggressive, that could be a dance. I mean, you have a lot of options. You could say, well, screw this guy. Let me just like fire back at why it is the best thing ever. And, what is your end goal of that? What's the end game? Where does that take you? Think through and step back. Don't just react out of your gut personality and ego. Step back and say, what's the biggest win here for myself? The biggest win is to win the account. All right, so if he's going to blow a hole in my theory, I can't just call him a jerk. Let me think about it, and let me try and solve it, and let me speak about it a different way that allows him to realign with us and get back on board with us.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. And to learn how to read those nonverbal cues sometimes, you can tell whether you're probably winning the pitch or losing the pitch at some point, even without them saying anything, just probably in their body language. Is that
yeah,
would you say
absolutely.
That's true?
Yeah, I mean, and it's the same thing when you guys go in for that first job interview. I mean, like when you go in there, pay attention to the other person. Think about what they're concerned about. It's normal to feel nervous and those sort of things, but think about the fact that you're already there because they're interested in you. I don't know any company that brings in somebody for like a big, formal interview if they're not at least somewhat curious that maybe you could fill a role or seen some aspect of what you do and they're curious. So when you have that opportunity, go in there confident and pay attention to what they're asking. A lot of times if you slow down, if you pay attention to what people are saying, you'll see that they're kind of leading you somewhere. You could start asking yourself, what are they looking for here? What are they asking for? Why are they even looking at hiring somebody for this position that I'm talking about? Is it because they need help because they're overwhelmed? Is this type of studio do this type of work and need these type of people helping? Am I not sure, but do I have like a gut instinct? At least have some sort of thought and pay attention. I mean, I feel like sometimes people in interviews, you ask them a question and then they just kind of shut off and they're like completely oblivious. There's so many nonverbal cues that you can pick up on in somebody's body language. If you choose to pay attention, if you're in a meeting or a negotiation and you can see somebody's body language, it's like you get a little bit of an insight on what's getting them excited or what they're kind of quickly brushing conversation away from. And so, I mean, it's not a science to it. It's kind of an art, and there's no, rules to it. It's just if you can be a little bit more aware in your everyday life, it makes you a better artist. And if you can do that in moments like a job interview or a pitch, sometimes you'll get instincts and you'll get reads on people, and you can trust your instinct and kind of like flow with that. And that's a big part of what we do when we sell things.
Okay. I'm going to take it a completely different direction now. I'm going to ask more about you personally. So, you're married, correct?
Yes.
And how do you manage starting up your own company, developing that relationship at the same time? I'm sure it was crazy hours, and I know you did freelance forever before you even got to the company side for your own company. How were you able to balance it all? How do you balance life with work, and especially when you are the owner of your work,
You have to like what you do. I mean, otherwise, I don't know why you would really even want to work in these businesses unless you like it. There's times where you don't like it. There's times where it's, frustrating and the hours are crazy and a render doesn't work or a client's upset. And it's part of the flow and the natural ebb and flow of this business and the way it works. The way you balance it is trying to enjoy what you do and trying to get immersed in it. I was lucky. I mean, I think honestly, almost every good thing that's ever happened in my life, I can attribute to Adobe Photoshop. And that sounds so dorky and it sounds so weird, but it's so true. Like I was in Los Angeles and I was 20-something years old, and I met this guy, and he was asking me who my favorite boxer was. And Manny Pacquiao wasn't that famous yet, but I had known about him a little bit. So I said, Manny Pacquiao is my favorite boxer. The guy goes, oh, yeah, why? I work with Manny. And he's like, why do you like Manny? I was like, I don't know. He walks in the ring, he's smiling. It's like, most fighters want to walk in the ring like they're a real tough guy. He walks in with like this big smile on his face. I always like that about him. He goes, that's interesting. He said, what do you do? I said, I make designs. I do design for television. He goes, I don't know what that means. I was like, all right. So I was trying to tell him, he wasn't that interested. I got his email. Like that night, I went online and I found a picture of Manny Pacquiao on the internet throwing a punch, and I composited some fire and some graphics around his fists, and I emailed it to him, and I said, this is what I mean. This is what I do. And a week later, he called me. He said, hey, Manny wants to meet you. He liked that. And so I go over, I meet Manny. He goes, hey, Nate, I want to put this on an autograph card and T-shirts. What do we need to do to make that happen? I said, nothing, man. Just throw it on there. It's awesome to meet you. I'm not, I don't need any money for it. Just do it. And he's like, wow, are you, I'm going to send you to my fight. So, all right. So he got me floor seats to his fight. And so after that, the next fight came around. I made another one for him. He goes, hey, I like that. I'm going to put that on. I'll give you floor seats in a hotel to the fight. And then the third time, all of a sudden I'm hanging out at his house. We're playing darts. We're watching this boxing match. And
of course you are. Right. Yeah.
This girl walks in, and I said, hey, who's that girl? And no one really knew who she was. She was a friend of somebody else. I said, is she dating any of the sparring partners? Because I'm an artist, and I don't want to fight, And they're like, no one's dating her. So I went up. Now, I dated her for 8 years, and now we just got married last year. And we've gone to every Pacquiao fight together, And
she's very lovely, I have to say.
And, literally, design is why I even got to meet her and got to meet Manny. And, anytime I got to travel or do anything that was interesting in life, is because of design. So I'm really grateful for it, but it's not some like just like chosen one, blessed sort of thing. It's a lot of hard work. You know, it's not like it just came to me and like it fell into my lap. I dreamed dreams like big dreams, you know, and hope, and I had ideas of what I wanted to have happen in my life, and I still do. But I try and say, all right, what am I going to do to have self-efficacy? What am I going to do to be more observant? What am I going to do to try and make those dreams come true? How can I reverse engineer it and make it more likely, or at the very least, just keep putting myself in the way of good things till something happens? And what can I do to, you know, at best, make sure I'm not hurting my own goal? And so there's ways to make yourself, like, quote, luckier by working harder. And I just noticed that, you know, when you're on the right path with things, you sometimes get good little nods and appreciation with it. When I came to Full Sail compositing, I did like a motion graphics project, and the teacher said, wow, you seem to really like that stuff. And I was like, that was like a little nod, like it just lets you know you're on the right track. And for whatever reason, like graphics, Photoshop, making style frames has always either made me happy or money, or allowed me to travel and allowed me to meet my wife. And so I got more out of design than I feel like I, you know, could even ever imagine already.
I love that. I love that. So, you know, now that you have, you're overseeing the whole company, you have your clients that you've established. You've come to the Hall of Fame. You were inducted into our Hall of Fame, which was brilliant. I loved your speech. I'm sure you're being asked now to speak about the company, about branding and design. Do you have any stories of anything that's been some crazy thing that's happened when you've spoken?
The most nervous I ever was, and the craziest was in Rio de Janeiro. I spoke to 4,000 people at Citibank Hall, live translated into Portuguese. And about 5 minutes before I go on stage, it was already intimidating, first of all, because Jason Whitmore, one of the other graduates from here, he also was speaking there. He crushed his presentation. It was like we had like an hour on stage just by ourselves, and it was so many people. It was insane. And so I don't usually get that nervous with public speaking, but it was a big event. And it was a long time to be up there. And every time you speak, you hear it yourself echoing, and then you hear it being translated, and everybody laugh or react or whatever, it'd be delayed by like 10 seconds. So your whole rhythm is weird, you know? And so I was a little bit nervous. And then 5 minutes before, somebody came up to me and they're like, we're going to do a big routine to celebrate, you know, we do for everyone when they walk out, we do like a big kind of routine to celebrate them walking on a stage. And I was like, okay. They're like, we saw that you did graphics for football, so you must love football. And I was like, well, yeah, I like football. It's, you know, it's great. It's not like my everyday life, but, you know, I like it. And like, well, we did a whole football theme open for you. And then, like, they open the store and, like, 30 cheerleaders walk out. And they're like, they're going to be dancing around you. And then all these other dudes walk out in football pads. And they're like, they're going to be playing, like, simulated football game right next to you. And then we want you to run from this mark on the stage to that mark on the stage and catch the football and then spike it in between the cheerleaders and then go into your speech. And I was like, are you insane?
Love it.
Like I'm already freaking nervous just to get up and speak, like, let alone, like, I was like, my hands are sweaty. I'm like, I'm going to catch a football. What if this guy has a terrible pass? Then I look bad and I got to, like, think about it the whole time. So I was like, no. I was like, just hand me the football and then I'll spike it. No throwing, no catching, no running from spot A to B. And so they handed it to me. I was so nervous. I was spiking the football and I was thinking, like, well, what if this bounces up and, like, hits me in the face? I'm like, you know, like, I was just imagining everything that could go wrong. But it turned out to be a good speech. I met a lot of really passionate, creative kids in Brazil. And it turned out to be one of those things where whenever I feel nervous now, I think back to how nervous I was before I walked onto that stage. And I try and kind of use that to gain more confidence and, like, you know that I could go out and speak like that.
4,000, huh?
That was crazy.
We're close right here, maybe on the interweb. All right. So coming back, I know you have a jam-packed weekend. Whenever we have you back, we'll fill your schedule for sure. And you're going to be speaking probably to students that probably aren't even our students yet, right? And just talk about your experience. When did you graduate? What year was it that you graduated?
2002.
2002. Okay. So we're 13 years past that. Can you remember back coming here on your first day?
Yeah, I remember. I remember coming and touring this place with my father, and when I was in school, in high school, I kind of was a class clown, and like straight academics weren't really what was of interest to me. But I always knew that I had a passion and an interest in film and animation and design and storytelling and composition and all that. And so when I came to the school, the thing that stood out to me that I felt was that they did take my dream seriously, and they did, it wasn't like I'm the class clown and, okay, he wasn't great in history or math, so he's kind of like over there with the bad kids. It was like, oh, you're a creative person, you have a dream, you have a goal, well, come here and learn and be around other people. So quite honestly, I felt really blessed to be able to come here. I felt really grateful to be able to be surrounded by people that were trying to improve their own skills. When you get out in the real world, you're not surrounded by people that all have a similar shared kind of experience. And the potential networking that you have here at this school with the people around you with that shared kind of experience, I think is a really unique set of circumstances. If I had to come back and do it again, I would just be like spending every waking moment I could learning from other people and figuring out what does a kid in a whole different degree program do that I don't even know about. Just because now I see, as I've gotten older and as I have my own business, the importance of getting interested and curious and absorbing everything that's around you. There was a lot of kids when I was in school here that didn't really make the most of their time. They kind of like were at partying and they weren't really focused. And it's such a competitive industry. It's like, why? I mean, you're not going to make it if you don't, excel and if you don't stand out. A lot of people want to work in movies, games, and music, and films, and there's people love those industries. People are hungry and would do anything to work in those industries. So like, if you're just kind of half-assed it here, then how can you expect to break through? I never understood that. So when I was here, we were always working on our portfolio. We were always trying to build something new, and I was always trying to learn something from somebody else. And honestly, I would do that even more if I came back.
Yeah, and I noticed you mentioned curiosity several times, and I think that's kind of what it takes, a passion for what we do, but also you're curious about, what's this software do, and what creatively could I do with that software? So that exploration time on top of your normal schoolwork, right? Because your schoolwork is driving a lot of your time as well. When did you realize, maybe when you were here, that you wanted to explore other things, plus you had to get the content done for class? Like, at what point did you start to feel that balance that you could do all the things that you really wanted to do?
One thing that I learned was sometimes it's easier to get forgiveness than permission, but it's a lot easier if you're doing something that people like, and if you're working hard and excelling at it. There was a few classes when I realized I wanted to do motion graphics, and then I had to go to a game class or something. I was like, that's not what I want to do. I want to focus on motion graphics. Now I'd probably be more open to it. I'd be curious. But then I was kind of like, that's not motion graphics. So I would kind of go out on a limb, and I would say, all right, here's my asset that you asked me to do, and here it is in a motion graphics scene.
Everything fell back to motion graphics, right?
And so I think I got a little bit of forgiveness because people could see that I didn't just work that like 2-hour lab or that 4-hour lab, that like literally I hadn't slept since Monday because I've been working on it for 7 days straight, and was pouring love into it.
Yeah, and as a business owner, I'm sure you can see this in people that come for interviews, but as a teacher here, or a fellow artist, I like to say, right, guys? Because I always learn from them. I feel like if I'm the teacher all the time, then I'm constantly telling them what to do. But, man, I can learn so much from you guys. And I feed off your passion, And so when you're passionate about something, even if it's not 3D, they're passionate about music or photography or a specific game and, like, the emotion that's pulling out of them or whatever. I gravitate towards that as a passionate person about the arts as well. So when you're in an interview scenario or you're meeting young artists, it's probably pretty evident to you right off the bat that they're really into it, right?
Yeah, I love that. There's nothing worse than somebody that doesn't have a lot of experience that walks in like they own the place and are better than the place and smug. The second I get that vibe, I'm like, you're out. And, it's funny because there's probably people like that around you in school sometimes. Like, it doesn't matter where you are. You could be at Pixar, and if you were there for a few years, that same person that's complaining about some this or that thing here at school, they would probably be complaining about that, some other thing at Pixar or at some, dream job. You can always, choose to focus on the negative thing, and you could always be the person that's Debbie Downer and talking down, or you could realize like the beautiful opportunity you have here. You could use your creativity, your imagination, your mental power to like just kind of propel your portfolio and focus on the good things, connect with people that are crushing it and are gonna crush it in the industry, or you could sit here and like complain. And when I was here, there was a lot of complainers. I haven't seen any of them in the industry. The people I see in the industry are the people that kind of shrugged that off and said, well, that is what it is. Let's focus and let's make something. And you could, you guys have nicer equipment than some of the big studios in Los Angeles have. Like, I'm not even talking mine, like big studio, like name brand studios. You guys have nicer equipment than some of them. And, sometimes when I'm walking through the halls and I hear a student complain, if you complain like that on a job, then that attitude is like the exact opposite of what people are looking for. They're looking for people who roll up their sleeves and say, all right, this is what we have. We can't sit around and complain about our circumstances. We have a deadline. How are we going to make this amazing? How are we going to get it done?
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that when I see those passionate people, I know that if I give them a task, even if they're not really into that task, because they're passionate about anything in the world, they could refocus that passion for a short time on the thing that needs to get done. And I think there's a quality to what they deliver, even when, especially when they might not like the brand that they're working on or something, but they still go for it, and they give you something sometimes unexpected, maybe that's even better than what you ask. And I'm sure that's invaluable as a company owner.
Yeah, that's everything. I mean, earlier we talked about all the things that are competing for your attention. So you think about like, why do people advertise entertainment? Because they want people to go spend money and see a movie or buy a song or whatever. And it's like, with all those things competing for your attention, you have to create content that is striking, that makes people stop, that's arresting, that grabs their attention and hangs on to them for a minute. And, there's a guy who owns a big studio, Real Effects. They did, some of the animated movies that just came out. I was meeting with him the other day, and he was talking about how, some of you guys that work in graphics and 3D, you'll understand this. There's a red, green, and blue channel and an alpha channel to an image, right? So RGBA. But then there's also the letter P, that channel. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, that's like the passion. That's like the passion channel. And it's like, that you can't like necessarily articulate it, but you can feel it. And when it's there, it's really evident and it grabs somebody. And when it's not, then your portfolio is like, okay, next. And when that passion is infused in your work, other people feel that and other people see that. And sometimes I would argue that that's more important than anything. More important than technically how you did it, the way you got there, the route that you modeled something. Maybe that's not true if you're in a pipeline and your job is just, let me just do X, Y, Z so this guy can do that. But if you're trying to like sell and pitch somebody on something and you fall short on that passion level with them and that gut reaction, then nothing else really matters because it didn't move them. So you could just take it that simple. Like, when you're looking at your own portfolio, does this move me? Maybe it's not the best thing. Maybe it's not the best artist I'll be ever in life. But right now, for what I can do, does this move me? Well, kind of. It's kind of, I see a lot of people in 3D. They're like, man, that character is sweet. That is amazing. I was like, the camera and the background are so basic. Why do you do that? They're like, I'm not interested in that. I just want to model characters. I was like, yeah, but when somebody sees your reel, they're still a consumer. They're still seeing it. Why not wow them? I'm not interested in that. Okay, but like literally, if you put the camera looking up at him at this angle, it'd be so much more dramatic and it would connect into your character and it'd have this and that. Oh, okay, yeah. And all of a sudden you do that, that character, you feel like a better character model because the way that you're controlling somebody else viewing it and feeling about it has a design choice. It's not a generic shot with a generic backplate that puts you into the same category as every other modeler that just throws their thing on a generic turntable and shows the exact same shot because I'm only being hired to model. Is that true? Maybe. But is what's going to make you stand out? It'll probably be the fact that, whoa, there's some passion level reading there. They're like, wow, that shot made me feel something. You know, why we're making films and television to make people entertained or to be moved or to feel something. So if you could do that as a modeler, and even if it's cheated a little bit because the lighting or the camera angle or the background you've put some love into and 98% of your competitors haven't, well, who cares? You're the guy who got the job because you made that guy feel like you get it.
I was so distracted while he was just saying that because I was like, I'm totally ripping this off and putting it in a lecture or something. And I'm going to take that little cut and I'm going to say, look, see? Because we're selling artistry, right? We're like, what's appealing to look at? No matter how you got to that point, is it appealing? Does someone want to look at it? We hear this argument a lot, I think, with animators where they're like, oh, you know, I'm just going to put a play blast on my reel because you can, and they could see animation from that. But I'm like, it doesn't sell your brand or your artistry.
Yeah, and like, or does it lump you into the largest group
Right,
of people that are applying for something?
Everyone
like,
else.
everybody else has that. Yeah. So I see a reel, and it's like, here comes a play blast thing. Now, let's say I'm not looking specifically for an animator, but if you have animator chops, that's a plus. But then I'm like, wow, the scene's kind of cool there. Oh, the lighting's kind of interesting. Yeah. Oh, they had like a vision for that. All right. Well, actually, I need them for this lighting thing, but let's get them in there because they can also animate. Now, for those of you who are saying, I only want to get a job at Pixar, and I only want to do this exact thing in their pipeline, and I don't care about any of those things, that may be true, but, you know, technology changes quickly, and you never know when something gets automated, something gets easier, and your level of understanding is less valuable. Things change in unexpected ways. I always thought it's better to understand things that don't change as much, like human emotion. How does a composition, how does a story, how does a color, how does the pacing of something, how do those things make somebody feel? And when they feel that way, what is the best thing to follow up to like make them feel more? And how do you control that and hang on to that? No matter what happens in technology, I know that people will place a value on that, because that's speaking to human emotion, which directly relates to entertaining them or selling to them. And that's the cornerstone of most of the things that are taught at this school. So if you can, even if you're like, I don't care, I want to be a rigger, and that's all I want to do, or all I want to do is make this and that, or be an editor, well, like, you know, you need to understand human emotion, and you need to understand how to speak to people so you make them feel a certain way. You need to understand how to articulate your own creativity. And when somebody says, hey, what are you working on? Not go, oh, nothing, but be able to talk about it in a way that gets them fired up, because everything matters. Our job is to entertain people or to sell something, and a lot of times those are the two categories that a lot of things fall into. So learn how to like really kind of control that and make somebody feel something in a visceral way. And you'll be the guy who stands out, not the 550 other reels that person will look at with the same gray play blast background. That's hard to say.
Yeah, play blast background. Play blast. I didn't do it on the mic. All right, I'm back. So I think I love that. You're preaching to the choir up here. So, and hopefully everyone out there is getting it. Are you guys getting that from Nate? You feeling that? Okay. I'm sure you have questions. Maybe we could switch over to a little question and answer time. Anybody have questions? We're going to have mics, and we'll have guys come around, run around with mics here real quick. Also, if you're online, feel free to post your questions online, and we'll actually ask Nate those questions as well. Okay. Here we go.
Hi, I am? Okay, cool. My name is Andrew Rao. I'm an animator. And early on in your presentation, you were talking about how kind of the art form, like when you get into something, it's not so much having a specific idea and just you don't want anything but that, and rather kind of going with the flow of it, letting it become its own thing, and then really dedicating yourself to that idea, whatever it is. If you do have like a very specific goal, like a dream, if I say I want to be a lead animator for Disney or Blue Sky or something, like I want to be directing other people and leading that animation, obviously it's not just going to fall into place. You need to hard work, and you need to be open to other things. To what degree should you compromise, saying like how to approach, should I go for the big thing and not settle for something less, or should I take something that's maybe unrelated but might grow myself as an artist or something? How I would approach that.
I think always go after what you want, and like always go for that A1. I mean, like that's your dream. And Leslie, who I don't know if some of you guys know, another Hall of Fame member, he had a great thing on a panel that I was on with him, where he said, "Don't make your A2 so far different." So like if the other thing that you're going to work on, don't make it like, well, I guess I'll just go be, I'll go repair air conditioning units now that I don't know how to, I didn't make it at that gig. Make that A2 a little closer. That was a great point he brought up. The other thing is like along the journey, you don't have to arrive there right away, but you could do a lot of things that like, help you and empower you to get to that position. One thing that I always like to do when I have a dream of like something I want to achieve, I like to think to myself, what thoughts do I have right now, or what things do I believe are true? What things that do I just accept as everyday life that would be maybe drastically different if I held that dream job that you just spoke about? And so you'd probably have some different visions. What else would I need to do to make myself ready to receive that? I always feel like when you want something, you have to like take steps to make yourself ready to have that happen. And so you would have to be amazing at your craft. So that's what you're working on now. So along the way, by taking a gig that's not your dream gig, it's still leading to that because you're becoming better. So you're going to have to be amazing at your craft. That's got to be one of them. Yeah. If you're going to be in the head role, you're going to have to be able to work well with other artists. You're going to have to be able to critique them well. You're going to have to think a certain way so that you can do your own work, but also support other artists and help them grow. You're going to need to be kind of helpful. You're going to need to have a good reputation and be able to work with people and kind of like help them push their own creative limits. You're going to need to understand how to interact with supervisors and your bosses. The type of things you'll need to know in that. The A1 is you have to be good at exactly what it is. Yeah. But there's a lot of other skills that you'll need. So in my opinion, there's no reason why you should ever stop going for that dream. I think you should go after it until you succeed and get it. And the second you do it, come up with another dream and keep dreaming bigger.
Okay.
But along the route, realize that by taking XYZ, if it's still in line with it, maybe that is just a path getting you to where you want to go.
So basically like chess, like kind of like view that.
Yeah, you can't go for checkmate right away.
Yeah.
When you do that, it like you're all out of position and everything else is harder. And like it's the same with creativity. You can't like try and solve it right there.
Yeah.
It's a dance, it's nonlinear, and you have to be trusting a little bit. You have to like just know that things are unfolding. And the way to check up on yourself is like, if I held that position today, what would I think about this? What would I do in this circumstance? How can I live that right now and be that to other people? Because part of what has to happen for you to get that job is people that have the ability to give you that job, they have to perceive you as worthy of that job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So you have to start embodying that. And it doesn't mean walking around faking it in an obnoxious way, but embodying it in a smart way and in a thoughtful way where you're kind of making people see you as that person. And you have to live that, and then you have to have experience of other people seeing you like that. And the more time goes by, and then the other thing is for all you guys, anybody that has a dream, like speaking up, being the squeaky wheel, like saying, I want this opportunity, I want to work on that. Not doing it in an obnoxious way, not doing it when it's inappropriate, but when the moment's right and you're around somebody who's a decision maker, say, I want more responsibility. What do I have to do? A larger goal that I have is this. Help me make myself ready to get that. I want to keep growing. What do I have to do around here to make my dream happen? Some people will laugh, some people won't get it. But you know what? Keep speaking up. There'll also be a lot of haters along the way. Yeah. See you speaking up. Oh, you want to get bigger than us now? Forget it. Like, just keep speaking up to the people that matter about what you want and keep embodying that every day. And when people see that you have those qualities and when you're in that right position where that's open, then you're the natural candidate. So it's a long-term end game. You can't go for the quick kill.
Yeah. It's like like my mom always used to say, it's like whenever you're trying to talk to somebody, you always say, "How can you help me?" And that's like one of the best questions you can ask as far as success is regarded. So,
Yeah, that's great.
awesome. Well, thank
Cool.
you very much.
Good luck.
Yeah, what's interesting about that too, when I was listening to you guys talk, is proving it in your work. You know, like you're embodying the that role that you're going into, but behind the scenes, you're proving it in your work.
Yeah.
You can't ask for those things
Right.
if you're not delivering your day-to-day job, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, another question. We have one over here on this side. We'll go side to side. We'll check online as well. Okay.
Hi. Do I have to introduce myself? I don't think so.
Hello.
What was a project that you had to work on that was particularly hard for you personally? Maybe because you were in a hard time in your life, or you just weren't really into it and you didn't really believe in the project you were working on. How did you complete that in the best way you could and overcome your own personal emotions about that particularly difficult project?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, everyone has to deal with that, and I think it's hard as you're first getting into trading your time and creativity for money, because people are expecting you to deliver no matter how you're feeling. And you know, a lot of artists are more emotional people. Feedback, hey, mic check.
Yeah. Check.
More kind of emotional people, and so I think being able to kind of get lost in your work and focus on it and use that as a little bit of escape from whatever may be bothering you, and just say to yourself that, like, look, whatever's going on is going to pass, and this is a time right now where it's not the best because of whatever, but for this moment, for right now, I have a responsibility, and let me put that aside. And the thing is when you're already like irritable or something's not right, you're a lot quicker to judge your own work, and you're a lot quicker to make a snap decision that it's no good, or it's not working, or you can't figure it out, or I see no path, this will never happen. Ugh, now I got to get this done. How am I going to focus with all this other stuff going on in my life? It's so easy to just default there. So what you have to do is you have to take extra time to be gentle with yourself and a friend to yourself and an ally with yourself, and help your creativity and be more patient with it, and say, all right, I have enough going on in my world. I'm not going to use my own artwork and the fact that I have a gig that I got to finish to beat myself up on. I'm going to use this as a release where I get to forget about that stuff for a while. I'm going to be patient, and I'm going to just like pour my time and heart into this project. I don't really think there's an easy way. I think that that's just what you have to do. I've been in situations where you have distractions, but you have a deadline, and it's very hard. But it's good practice, and it only makes you better. And you know, whatever's stressing you out will pass. And one thing I said earlier that I think is really important is stepping back and looking at things from another layer back. A lot of times when things are stressing us out, or we're really feeling like there's drama or there's tension, we're so tight and so close to the situation that all we could see is the exact kind of filter that's right in front of our eyes. And maybe if we could step back and see the perspective of it, and see another route where something might be possible. You know, I was going through buying out assets in the lease and taking over my business and rebranding it and splitting up with a business partner. There was times in there where I still had to get things done on huge budget accounts, and I had to go to meetings, and I had to like put a good face on. I had to brief artists, and I was stressed. I didn't know how it was going to happen, and there was a lot of tension, and I wasn't sure. And I trusted that if I step back, maybe that it's a good thing after all. Maybe there'll be some positive. Maybe it would all work out. You know, people make snap decisions so frequently if something's good or bad. You don't really know if it's good or bad. Something could happen that seems like it's bad, and it may lead to a great thing. So, like, not judging it, being patient, being friendly to yourself, and getting lost in the work, I guess that's the only real way I would know.
Awesome. I love the fact that you talked about stepping back a layer. And I know earlier we were talking a little bit about just being in tune with everything, but also experiencing things as it happens. I think we're so quick to just go on to the next thing. We never appreciate what's been accomplished or realize where we're at and how cool it is that we're doing this for a living.
It's true. Savoring things savoring your accomplishments, savoring the journey, you know, like in your own creative work, like savoring it, like imagining and like feeling that enjoyment of your own work, like you know, crafting this film, this character. Yeah, I could judge it. I could say it's not the best yet, it's not there, or I could just like think about like, wow, I'm here at this college, surrounded by all these other people that are passionate, that are hopeful, that have dreams, and I'm figuring this stuff out, and that's pretty cool. And like just sitting there and savoring that. People think that's a waste of time. You never know when just in that relaxed state that savoring puts you in, all of a sudden a nonlinear connection happens and you're like, oh my God, I got an idea of what I could do to solve this or to make that cooler or for my new project or for my final project or for my portfolio. That's where the best ideas come from all the time, I think, of when you're just relaxed, you're feeling gratitude, you're grateful, you're savoring something, you're lost in the mystery, you're lost in the curiosity of something, and you're just kind of laughing and having fun and talking, having conversation, or sitting quietly, and then boom, all of a sudden that idea just is, you get that glimmer and you grab onto it and it turns into the big thing.
Awesome. Okay, we have a couple online? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so this is on the YouTube streaming. Shad Hall asked, who is or was your favorite client and why?
Manny Pacquiao, because he introduced me to my wife.
No, okay, that makes sense.
But aside from him, let's see. That's a good question. I mean, it's hard. You know, we just did a big project. You know, I have different favorite clients and projects for different reasons. Some of them because of like the work got me excited. Some of them because the relationship. I'll just speak in more general terms. I guess my favorite clients are the ones who lean in and who are interested as well and who care, and people who want to push things, and people that pride their own creativity. They're not people that are just there doing busy work and don't really care. You know, my favorite jobs are when the client gets fired up and they're contributing on a high level and they're respectful of your process, but they're also contributing good ideas. And so when you get somebody like that where you can really collaborate with, and the dance and the conversation and the ideas grow and back and forth, and it gets bigger and you enlarge what's possible as you're speaking to one another, and you're getting fired up, and you're building a shared brand vision. You're building a shared understanding of why the creativity matters to an organization or a campaign or a film. And when there's belief in it and passion behind it, any client that checks those boxes off would be my favorite client.
Okay. Got another one?
Yeah, yes,
Go
actually
ahead.
I do. Carly Estes asked, what class influenced you the most while you were attending Full Sail?
A lot of classes, but one that really stood out to me was we did a film theory class in mini school, I think. And it was the beginning of my time here, but the whole reason I got into animation is because I love film and cinematography. And my pops bought me a little camera when I was like 9 years old. And I couldn't imagine, or I couldn't get the shots that I imagined because I just was running around with this little camera. And so when I found animation, I realized I could create anything and there was no limitations on what I could do. But my first love was always cinematography of film and the way that a film image could make you feel just from the look of it, from the light, from the color, from the angle. Photography and film is my first love. And so when we spoke about some of that, and we spoke about directors and their vision, that got me excited to take that vision and connect it in to what we were learning in Maya. And that was always what I was interested in.
Awesome. Okay. More questions in the room here locally? We got... Okay, right here. Thanks.
How you doing? Thank you for your wise words throughout the lecture. My name is Alex Hans, recording engineering grad and staff member here. My question for you, too, who would be one ideal mentor for you to grab right now in the industry? If you could have anybody to take you to the next level, who would that be? And if you had a year to rebuild your entire company from the ground up again, what would be the first thing you'd do?
Wow, those are great questions. I don't know. That's good questions, man. Well, there's a lot of people that I guess I would want to mentor me and to spend time with. I just, I don't know, you know, there's people I know that don't hold big titles, but they are big idea people. There's people I know that hold big titles that have experience working at a high level, competitive nature that I would love to be around and see what their day is like. I don't really want to say any names, like, and put anyone out there like that right here. There's a CEO of a major company that I've got to work with a little bit, and I think that he's brilliant. And I don't want to put it all on YouTube and blast on him. And then I also just happened to meet recently the chairman of a major feature film corporation, and I wrote him an email, and he replied to it. And as I was writing that email, I was thinking about the emails I was getting from students as I was leading up to this week. And some of them are very short and sweet, and they get right to the point. And some students write me, and they're 10 paragraphs long, and they're disjointed, and I have no idea what they're speaking about. And I was writing this draft to this major film player that I would love to spend more time with. And my first email was too long, and I was thinking, all right, this is what I tell the kids not to do. How can I connect to the heart of what I'm really asking them here? So I just distilled it down, kept it simple, very professional, but like interesting so I could get a response. He replied back in an hour, and hopefully it'll be somebody that I'll get to interact with and maybe have some work with. In terms of if I had to restart my whole company, I basically just did. You know, so I mean, I'm getting to do that now, so it's a great question because I should be thinking about that.
Right, you're in the process.
I'm in the process of that, so those are things that should always, you know, be at the front of my mind. I think, you know, having that vision for your company about who you are and why you're different and the way that you speak to people, and you're at that point in a very competitive field with very talented people. It's one thing if you're starting, let me get that first job. All right, let me become a freelancer and beat that other freelancer out of the booking. There's competition the whole way up. But when you're owning a business, I'm competing against people who are, you know, incredibly well-funded, people that have been in business for a longer time than I, that have bigger staffs, and a client doesn't care. You know, it's not like they don't have any sympathy for, oh yeah, well let's give them an account just because they're getting fired up. You know, it's just let the best work and the best creative solution win. So the number one thing that I think you have to have if you're going to have a successful business is something that you're selling that you believe in, and a way to be different and stand out than your competitors, because you have to assume people are doing a good job out there, and that's why they're in business, and that's why they have huge companies. So what are you going to do to be different? It's the same question you have to ask yourself with your reels and your portfolios you send out for those first gigs. There's a ton of talented kids just on this campus, all right? And then let's zoom out to the state. There's a ton of talented kids all over the state. Let's think about the whole world now. We work in a more global place. I get letters from kids from China that are moving to, you know, Los Angeles, and their reels are great. So you're competing against people all over the world. So who are you, and how do you make me feel, and what are you selling that I want to buy, that I got to have? And that's always what you have to really understand, especially when you have your own business. And when you're a freelancer or you're getting out your first job, make no mistake, you're a little one-person business. And you have to manage your taxes, you have to manage your marketing, you have to manage your emails, you got to make sure you got everything right, and your PR and everything. It's not just let me show up and do my job. If you're a freelancer, it's let me show up and do my job while leaving an impression so I can get my next job, while making sure my finances are all right, so if I don't get a job, I'm cool, and this and that. I mean, it's bigger than just doing the actual job at that point. I always recommend people get a gig for like a year or two full-time before going freelance. Because when you go freelance in a major competitive market like Los Angeles or New York, at least in motion graphics, you're really defining very quickly to a community that's not that big who you are and what your value is. And you want to be going out as a hired gun freelancer when you can establish yourself as somebody that's going to get in and be a problem solver and get things done. And you want to really control the way people perceive your brand. And that starts right here in even the hallways of Full Sail. Like, how do you act when somebody gives you a critique, you know, things like that. So I know I'm kind of dancing away from your topic there, but those things about having a vision of who you are as a business and your business plan, that's critical. And for you guys as a student and having a one-person business as your own company, when you get out of here, what is your vision and your plan, you know?
Okay. Got one over here. Does we have another? There we go.
Hi, my name is Allie Killian, and I'm in my 3rd month of computer animation. And thank you, first of all, for coming out and talking to us. But what was the most difficult part of establishing your studio, and how do you plan on doing it differently this time around?
I think the most difficult part was just kind of like taking the first step, to be honest with you. I think there's no shortcut to like being able to have a company. I think all the work I did freelancing helped me, but I was in a very comfortable job where I was freelance and I was getting to travel, I was making good money, and I was setting my own schedule. I'd go home and I'd forget about work, and I'd come back the next day and I'd pick it back up. Now that I own a business, it's not necessarily like that. It's great that to be your own boss, you don't necessarily go home and forget about work. You go home and you think about work, and you're working all the time in your mind. And so, you know, the hardest part was, do I take the risk and leave a successful freelancing career, potentially anger and polarize the people that are hiring me now, to go after the people that are hiring them so they can hire me? The decision to leave a comfortable place and not feel like you were all the way ready, but to do it anyway, that's something that I'm grateful for my business partner for, because he helped nudge me a little bit. I'm grateful that I have the company to myself. I like it better, that I can control things the way I want them done. But in the beginning phase, he nudged along and kept moving things along. And areas that felt uncomfortable, it was easier to take that step because we were kind of in it together. And now it's easier to launch the company because all I'm really doing is changing a sign on the wall and changing the names of the checks and the way that we market everything. Other than that, I'm in the same spot in Beverly Hills. I got the same artist in there. I got the same computer, same server. So the second time around is a lot easier. First time around, how do you leave a successful job and take the risk where you may not get work and you're used to kind of having success, but you may polarize the people who are giving you those opportunities by going after their clients. So that was very scary, and there's no formula to that. You just have to go for it.
Okay. Question down here in the front. Does anybody over here? Oh, we got one with a mic standing up in the back. Yeah, if you have a mic when we're done with the question, just wave it in there and I'll see it. Okay. All right.
I'm Jonah Hardy. I'm in the computer animation program, and I want to know how you deal with maybe the failures in the freelance field, like spending 2 weeks working on a project and then finding out that the client doesn't like it and you don't get paid, and you just spent 2 weeks working on it.
Yeah, that's not a very good deal. I mean, typically, you should get paid anyway, typically. When you're going to do a freelance deal with somebody, you have to be, especially if it's a non-standard client. You know, sometimes doing deals, I remember when I was a student, we got a few freelance deals with people around here, not here at Full Sail, but like around Orlando. They don't have experience of being a client. They need something, but they don't know how to be, they don't know the process of how graphics work. If you work with NBC, they work with 1 million companies every day, so it's like, every year, so it's like, you can collaborate with them in a more predictable manner. When you're working with somebody, you should never, unless that was your expectation that if they didn't like it, you wouldn't get paid. Typically, as a freelancer, if you freelance at my shop and I hired you to do a set of boards and your boards didn't win the pitch, you would still get paid. You'd be getting paid for every day you were working on it. I wouldn't get paid because they didn't buy the animation. So that's more my responsibility to make sure that my artist and I are putting something together that's going to wow them, so we're going to win that pitch. It's so hard to say because there's so many freelance things out there. But first of all, you can't hold your work too precious. We sell our creativity to other people in this business by nature. So you're going to have ideas that you think are the best ideas ever. Somebody else is going to not like them or say no or not be wowed or literally hate them. And not everyone's tactful about it. So you have to realize that that person may not even be right, quote unquote, if there's a right or wrong in art, but like they may not even have as sophisticated as an eye as you. But if they're the one paying for it, then you have to just kind of be okay with it. You have to be okay with kind of like letting your visions change and be molded by other people. And what I would say is if you're going to do more freelance work, being very clear about how things are going to happen. And so that, you could say, if I'm going to do a freelance job, I want to be very clear, and you can say this to the people that give you an opportunity. I want to really protect our relationship here because this is not about one project for me. I want to be able to be a creative partner with you on any other need that you have moving forward. The way that I'm going to ensure that we do that is let me guide you through this as a professional relationship. So we're going to start by really identifying the key deliverables of what you need from me. And we're going to talk about a price that we feel is fair for that. And we're going to talk about a point in time on a schedule where if we go beyond that, I can't keep working for this amount of money. We need to get unified on the vision early and fast, and then we need to be unified on finishing it by a date. Because if it goes beyond that, you're going to be spending more money, and you're not going to have what you want yet. Now, this is a tricky thing. It's a balancing act. Because if your capability is not there yet as an artist to sell that to somebody, you can't just start ringing up the bill if you're not really fulfilling what they're looking for. And it's a quick way to kind of like burn your reputation and name. So freelancing is a tricky thing. You have to get into it, and you have to really be able to defend and set clear expectations, manage your clients' expectations, and make sure that they really understand what they're going to get and how it's going to flow. And if you have a little gut instinct that they're missing the point of something, you can't tuck it away and think about it later or see what happens. You have to address it on the spot in a way that's professional, that makes them gain confidence in you and not become adversarial with you. So it's a tricky thing. I actually think it's harder to work with clients that have a smaller budget that are less experienced working with a freelancer because they don't know how to interact with freelancers yet, really. And maybe they don't fully trust you. If a client's being difficult in a freelance job, maybe you have to gain more trust. Maybe you're not hitting the creative mark that they're looking for, and maybe that client's afraid to articulate, what, maybe they're afraid because they can't articulate what that creative wish that you're not fulfilling is. So you have to over-communicate with that client. The way to make a freelance job go smooth is to have clear expectations and to really help that client articulate their own creative need and be there for it. It's more your responsibility than theirs.
I love that. I love that you've done this in several conversations I've had with you today, where you said, I want to partner with you in a long-term relationship. That's the investment that you're making, the human investment with someone, right? That had nothing to do with art right there. I love that. You've done that a couple of times. I just pulled this out and took notes. All right, anyway. Let's go over here.
Hi.
He's being directed.
Linnell Applewhite, digital art and design grad. My question is, as a creator, did you find it difficult when you first started getting into freelance to negotiate contracts and talk about the business aspects of being creative?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And what avenues or what things did you do to mitigate that difficulty?
It's hard because you don't have a lot of experience in it. You're also fine-tuning your own skills. And, for some of you, when you get that gig, it's the first time somebody's paying you to do a creative challenge. Right now, you guys are paying to learn. You're at school, and you're coming to get your education. And when you get a freelance gig, somebody's paying you so you could take that education and apply it to their creative challenge and deliver a product. And to be able to know what your own creative value is very difficult. And that's a wide-ranging thing. People view and perceive artwork and what you're going to do for them as different values. Some people are like, oh, yeah, just do it on the computer. Do that thing. Just, make it for me. Go ahead. I'll get you, I'll buy you dinner. And it's like some people put a big price tag on it and think it's very hard to do and impressive. I think there's no secret to it. It's really about more time in the seat and sometimes it takes a little bit of uncomfortable conversations. One thing that you can always do if you're getting those first few freelance jobs is you can always go back to the heart of the creative challenge. Figure out what's important to them. A lot of times on a smaller budget freelance job, the budget is their A1 priority. The quality and what's going on is secondary. Now, sometimes that's not true, but I found in my experience a lot of times it was. So now if you're perceptive to that, the way you're going to speak to this person is going to change. And now you get leverage in the situation. You know there's something that matters to them. Money. We can't spend more than whatever number. So now you have flexibility to control the outcome a little bit. You can say to that person, look, I know that budget on this is a top priority for you guys, and I know you're all in max at this. What I want to do, and then you address their secondary goal. What's their creative goal? What I want to do is, in that budget range, I want to really think how to work in the smartest way to deliver this for you, so your client, or so that you get this sort of result you're looking for. Now, but because we have a budget that's locked off at that range, what I'm going to suggest is instead of you asking me to do a 5-minute animation, why don't we just make it a 30-second animation? Now, I know that sounds like a lot less, but I actually think you're going to get more bang for your buck. I'll be able to really protect your budget, and maybe we can even make something that people will focus on more. So you always have to be able to look for a way that you're pivoting conversation to show them that you're respecting what matters to them, but also using it in that same breath to set yourself up for success. Now, if you're just talking about how do you know what is the exact dollar figure to ask for, that's a tougher conversation because that's, some people, they're expecting to spend nothing. And so what I like to try and do, and it doesn't work usually, but is get them to say a number. But now, if you just say, what are you going to spend on this, it puts people on the spot. So what you could do is you can kind of lead them and massage them into saying what that number is. You could say something like, well, as a creative professional who's freelancing with you, there's a lot of different ways that we can. He's getting more direction there. as a creative professional that's helping you with this freelance project, there's a lot of ways we can structure this. So for your project, we can go really high end and more of this look and that. But if a budget's really important to you, then we can go here. What kind of range are you working with? And then you could start to talk about it. Like, I'm not sure. I don't even know. And it's like, well, that's okay. Typically on something that's more high end, it takes more time and it does start to get quite expensive. Like, is there kind of a ballpark? Like I can't go above this, and I'm comfortable in this area. A lot of times people won't say it. If you can get that out of them, and they say the number first, that's better. If you say the number first, you don't know if you're way too high or way too low. If they say something first, you can kind of gauge it. The other thing you could start to do is you could start to say, what is my time worth? And, okay, so what would it be worth if I go and work down the street at this shop and I was there for, 10 hours? What would it be if I just stayed here in school and I was focusing on this? What would I be gaining in education? And so, what would I perceive my day, and not being extravagant or like crazy with it, but what do I perceive my time to be worth? And then, so even if you're wrong in that number, but you're okay with that number, it gives you a point of reference. So you could say, well, creatively, I know this is going to take me 5 days, and if I feel that if I could make, $500, that'd be $100 for every day that I'm working. And that would be pretty damn cool because I've never even sold animation before. All right, so maybe $500, maybe they don't have that in their budget. Maybe they do. Maybe that's a low number. Maybe that's a high number. But now you start to have, well, I definitely don't want to go below that because if I want to at least make $100 a day doing this, and I'm going to be spending this many hours on it. So it's a dance. There's not a set answer for that. You have to kind of, figure out what's important to your client and speak to them in a way to try and get them to say something first, or at the very least feel comfortable, make it feel very genuine, be very professional. And the thing is if you go too high with a number, don't freak out and act like, oh my God, I'm sorry, I hope I don't lose this. Use that. There's always a way to pivot and make something go to your advantage. And the advantage there is you say, some of my clients are very used to paying that. It doesn't have to be necessarily that you have a bunch of clients paying that, but it gives you a way to pivot out of if you go too high and they have an added perception of your value. Now, another great thing for all you guys that are starting to engage in freelancing is sometimes you get somebody who calls you and says, I want you to do this project, and I have almost no money, and I want it quick, and I want it good, and this and that. And I remember being intimidated as a young artist and man, how am I going to get out of this but not piss that person off or like not blow it if they have something bigger in the future. One thing you can always say is, you know, the creative quality to me is something I never can sacrifice. That's what I sell. And with your current time frame, I'm not able to really guarantee the level of quality that I have to guarantee to take on work. That's just a personal standard of mine. Even if you don't feel that way for the job they're saying, it gives you a way to get out of working with somebody that's trying to take advantage of you and do it in a way where it just makes your own personal brand look better.
Man, that was like a brilliant master's class on what to do as a freelance artist. I hope I'm seeing some pencils and you're writing some stuff down, man. That's gold. All right, good. I like bragging about the guy while he's sitting right next to me. Okay, we got another question. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey Nate, how's it going?
Hi.
I just had a question for you. What is your advice for students that's in school and that's getting ready to graduate, whatever? What is your advice for them to pursue their dreams? I know some people have a hard time pursuing their dreams because sometimes like they get discouraged sometimes. Like, where's your advice for people that's like trying to pursue their dreams, but sometimes they tend to shut down by people that they're surrounded with whatever, you know? What is your advice on that?
I'm not sure I understood fully. The mic kind of was
Yeah,
out a little bit.
Okay.
advice on change?
No,
Is that what you said?
what's your advice for people that's trying to pursue their dreams, but sometimes they get knocked down by people that they're surrounded with sometimes? Like, sometimes they get discouraged. Like, where's your dreams on people? Like, where's your advice to people that's trying to, like...
Being discouraged?
Like, yeah.
Yeah, like I think just about following your dreams and not being discouraged. I mean, if you care about it, then there'll be times where you will be discouraged, and that's natural, and that's part of what is going to end up making you better anyway. And it's one of those things where you perceive something as bad, but you don't even know where it's going to net out later. Being discouraged right now maybe means that you're working harder, and then you get that gig later. Also realizing that where you are in this very moment, what do you need to take from it before you go to that next level? And how do you keep preparing yourself to get to that next level or get that opportunity? And also just like not comparing where you are with where somebody else is. It's hard to do that. I remember in school there was kids that were way better than me in classes, and I was like frustrated. I remember kids that got a job before I did. I was frustrated. And that's part of it. You know, you're a human being and you care. It's good. I think the key is using the frustration in a way that gets you motivated rather than brings you down. Realizing if you're kind of a frustrated or emotional person with your art or like with what's happening and you're not there yet, that's okay. And it's not going to happen exactly on your clock. It takes other people to see the value in you. You need to like look at what do I need to do to show more people who I am to give myself a better chance of getting hired or breaking through. And so, you know, discouragement is part of being an artist and part of life and part of business. And I think it's just something you got to keep getting comfortable with.
Yeah, I think on those same lines, I think the idea of constantly practicing your craft seems to build that confidence in you. Just because you've just put in the time, you know you're doing it every day, even if it's just a little bit, especially if you graduate and don't get a job right away, right? I think that there's a level of discouragement there that is 10 times worse because of the fear. Am I ever going to do it?
Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you start in your mind feeling like, well, now, see, there's no path. There's no way I could get this. There's no way I could do that. That's like so the wrong mindset, because then you're tightening up. And like we talked about earlier, when you tighten up, your ideas and your mind clench up, and you can't see more perspective. You can't have more ideas. And what you need to be doing in that moment is, what can I be doing to get myself out there more? What can I be doing to have self-efficacy, to make something happen because of my own choice and my own will? And what can I do to apply myself and dream a different dream that still takes me to my ultimate place, but like allows me to get my foot in the door? Or how can I like break down these barriers of what I think is possible and go after something I haven't even thought of yet?
Okay. We'll do one more question, and that will be it. That will be our time, okay?
I'm over here.
Okay, he's back there.
Hey, Nate, Keith Richardson.
Oh, Keith, what's up, man?
How
Good to
you
see you.
doing? Good to see you. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for coming. It's really valuable for the students to hear what you have to say.
Thank you for coming. Keith used to run Gamma and this motion graphics community, and I was the only kid that went to it that wasn't in his program.
That's
And
right.
I was on the computer animation side. I met Chris Kelly, he got a job at Google. I met like all these great guys that are working in LA, helped me, and so it's awesome to see you here, Keith.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I've been here 17 years now, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the students that distinguish themselves in the classroom, that have that artistic standard and dedication, are the ones that end up in the Hall of Fame and come back here and talk to you guys about success. I think it's intriguing that you spent most of the first hour talking about the artistry and the passion and the dedication and even being tuned to that positive frequency. And you can see most of the students' questions are about the business aspect of it. But I think it's important to point out that it's the dedicated artistry in you that got you to where you are now as a businessman. And I'm curious what you get to do now in your business, now that you have all the responsibility.
Yeah.
How do you maintain and foster this, I forget the word you use, that creative atmosphere or whatever in your business?
Yeah.
And do you specifically get to hire the people that come in and judge their vibe in terms of this sort of artistry and positive attitude that you're bringing into your company?
That's a great point. And I think you're so right. Every time I'm here, a lot of the students' questions, you're right on the first part of that, like connecting to like, well, how do I get that job? And one thing that I really remember, like in really honest way when I was here, I almost never thought about getting a job. Like I literally, I don't know why or how, or maybe I was just really young, but like, I don't know, like I never thought about getting a job while I was here. I was just literally like interested in what we were doing. And I was like, this is so cool. We're getting to play with After Effects. Like we're playing with Photoshop, we're playing with Maya. Yeah. Like that literally was my thought. And it was just like, what can we go do? And I was like, cool, maybe one day we'll get to work on movies. But I wasn't like, all right, how do I get this job? I just kind of was like interested in it. And so I think to succeed in any of this stuff, you got to just pour your love into the actual product. That's always what matters the most. In my business, the most important thing that I always remember is what we're selling. And when we can get that wow factor and get somebody fired up by a design or an animation, that's what keeps them coming back. Everyone that works there, I hire them. I try and do boards on almost every job that we get. Sometimes it's hard, but even if I'll just do like one frame or I'll talk about an idea with some of my senior guys, I still want to keep that sharp. When you don't do some work for a little bit, it's easy to let that kind of fear and doubt creep back in. Like, oh, can I still make it? Can I do that? And so like, I'm always trying to battle that away and just like keep everything sharp and keep inspired and keep kind of playing in the sandbox and in the mystery, and to be able to have fun. That's a big goal of mine. Honestly, like my wife is a nurse. She called me today in tears because one of her patients wasn't doing well. She's having a bad day at work. When I have a bad day at work, maybe we don't want to pitch, maybe Photoshop crashes and we lose the document. But in all honesty, we have a really fun job. We're all here studying things that are entertainment, they're interesting, they're exciting. They're serious business, yes, but remember the heart of it and like the joy of it and just getting lost in the creativity and the magic and the wonder of creating. That is a big part of why I like to do what we do. And if that was ever gone, I would rather just not do it, for money.
So do you think as your business gets larger that you'll try to bring people in to take care of the financial or managerial part of it so you can still have a creative hand in what goes on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even now, like if there's things that get busy, I'll hire people that I trust to handle it with legal things and looking at contracts, so I'm not like just swamped in paperwork all day. The one thing that I always want to do is keep growing with how to make people feel through imagery and make people like react to imagery. And I think just distilling that down to a really simple essence of like human emotion. I don't think I'll ever let go of kind of the creative side of the business. It's what I love. And I found that even the busy business type of side of things, like pitching, and I mean, that's not busy, but it's like the business side of it, not busy work, but like the more kind of corporate side of it. There's creative aspects there that you can utilize to make that interesting and to succeed and beat competitors. But still, my love is returning to like the story, the idea, and the heart of how it makes someone feel. So I'll never let that go. That's why I'm there to do that.
Awesome. Hopefully you can come back and induct Chris Kelly someday.
I'd love to. Nothing would make me happier, but I don't know. It'd be hard to top his speech, man. He was so good.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Keith.
All right, that is our time. Can we thank Nate Howe for his time with us, his wisdom? It's amazing. Thank you, man. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it.
Hey guys, real quick, I know tomorrow's Saturday, but tomorrow we have a couple of times where